We're going to look at Acts chapter 27 and learn about the two ships. The first ship is called the ship of Adramyttium. The second ship is called the ship of Alexandria. First, I'm going to explain about the ship of Adramyttium. Then, we are going to look at the journey of the ship of Alexandria. So, the ship of Adramyttium, it starts at Caesarea. That's where Paul gets on the ship. Then it goes to Sidon. The next day, it arrives at Sidon. And then from there, it continues with the journey. It passes near Cyprus, through the Sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia. Then it arrives at Myra of Lycia. So this is where Paul is. Then the ship of Alexandria begins its journey. The reason why it is called that is because it came from Alexandria, which is a city in Egypt. So the ship of Alexandria begins its journey in Alexandria. Then it goes to Myra of Lycia, and this is where Paul gets off the ship of Adramyttium, and then he gets onto the ship of Alexandria. So we are going to look closely at the ship of Alexandria. The word Alexandria means protector of the people. So we're going to be looking carefully at Alexandria from Acts chapter 27, from verse 6 to verse 44. That is the journey of this ship. So we're going to be learning about that. We're going to read Acts chapter 27, verse 6.
And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing into Italy, and he put us therein.
As we've seen, Alexandria means protector of the people. So we're going to put that on that waymark. There was wheat loaded on board the ship of Alexandria, and we're going to learn about that and what it means. Both of these things, that Alexandria means protector of the people and that there was wheat loaded on board, it helps us to learn about the year 1798. And these are the reasons why. The name Alexandria, which means protector of the people, it's explaining the beginning of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the SDA, and the United States of America. When the Seventh-day Adventist Church began, it was a protector of God's people, and it stood for the religious rights of people, that people should be free to worship God the way they believe. And the United States of America was a nation that supported and believed in religious liberty, that there should be no laws that stop people from worshiping whosoever they would like to worship. So both the Seventh-day Adventist Church and the United States of America were the protector of the people. And the wheat loaded on board is explaining that in 1798, the Adventist Church and USA, they begin good. We learn from the parables of Jesus when he explains about wheat and tares, that the wheat is good. And also the prophetess Ellen White, she calls the ship of Alexandria the good ship. So in that way we know that at the beginning, God's church and the nation of USA were good. We're going to learn about Myra of Lycia again, but now from Acts chapter 27, from verse 6. We've looked at Myra of Lycia before, so we need to remind ourselves of one of William Miller's rules, rule number 10, which will help us to understand. It says,
figures sometimes have two or more different significations.
and what that means is that one thing can have two or more other meanings. So in our story that we're looking at, Myra of Lycia, it had a meaning in the ship of Adramyttium, but now it's going to have a different meaning and it's going to stand for a different time. A good example is an ark. So we can see there Noah's ark. This is what an ark can mean. But the very same word, ark, can also mean the Ark of the Covenant. So as we can see, Noah's ark and the Ark of the Covenant look very different, but it's still the same word, ark. So this will help us to understand how Myra of Lycia can mean one thing in the ship of Adramyttium and it means another thing in the ship of Alexandria. So we've already looked at Myra of Lycia in the ship of Adramyttium, and we know that Myra means bitter. It stands for a disappointment, and that Lycia can mean light or white, as in the sense of ripening grain. And then we saw that this helped us to understand that it's talking about harvest. So we're going to have other explanations about what these words are showing us and their meanings. So we're going to have another explanation to understand what these words and their meanings are showing us. We're going to have the date of 22 October 1844, and we see there that bitter, which means disappointment, is pointing to the great disappointment, which is the name of the time when the Millerite Adventists thought that Jesus was going to come in 22 October 1844 and were very disappointed when he did not come. That date is called the Great Disappointment. Then the white of ripening grain, which stands for harvest, that is showing us how there were thousands of Millerite Adventists who were waiting for Jesus to come. But after 22 October 1844 came and went by, we only found 50 Millerite Adventists that were ready to learn more about what had happened. So they represent the people that are harvested because they are ready to learn more. And all the other people, it's either they left believing in God altogether and stopped being Christians, or they came up with new religions, new Christianities. And that is where we'll end our lesson today. Amen.